Right on time.
It was literally perfect.
Yes, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of palpitations, right? It gets the heart rate up.
Anthony,
What's up, everybody? This is Anthony D'Ambrosio from Supply Chain Solutions, and you are listening to the Ship Show Series podcast. Today is Thursday, October 5th, 2023, and this is episode number 37 in our series this year. Now, this week, everyone, we have a very special and amazing show for you. It is our honor to have the New Jersey entrepreneur extraordinaire who successfully launched Suuchi Inc. in 2016. The Suuchi Grid is described as a multi-product modular platform that combines the best of product lifecycle management and enterprise resource planning with intuitive collaboration, project management, and procurement functionality across the spectrum. Simply put, the Suuchi Grid helps manage complex supply chains in the digital world by bringing together design, sourcing, production, vendors, customers, and remote workforces. So please join me in welcoming Suuchi Ramesh, the founder and CEO of Suuchi Inc. And just a little background on Suuchi before we get started. So before Suuchi founded Suuchi Inc., she was a computer science engineer with an MBA in marketing and IT, working in the world of predictive data analytics for 10 plus years. And she has graced the covers of Forbes, Bloomberg, Glamour, and New Jersey Biz. I'm proud to call her a colleague and friend. She's a force of nature. But last but not least, you've heard the saying, we save the best for last. And it's my pleasure to introduce my Ship Show co-host, the Director of Client Outreach and Development, the incomparable Jason Brand. So Jason, Suuchi, what's happening?
That was incredible. Like you I'm going to record that and paste that everywhere. But thank you, Anthony. That was super kind and very well done. And I appreciate all the kind words. And I couldn't be more excited to be here and hang out with both of you.
Well, it's our pleasure, Jason.
Yeah, and I love the fact you're here too, because, so we had a couple pre-talks about this, and we've talked about, partnerships and alliances and how they work in our space. And when we were talking last week, we were both kind of saying, hey, let's kind of start with this idea of partnerships and alliances, because I think on the whole, some people will understand. They're like, okay, hey, Suuchi created a software platform that is kind of taking soup to nuts, everything you need in the logistics space, making it easy to hook up, easy to communicate. But we also have our own kind of brought together white labeled platform as well. So I want to just start right off with there. How do you feel in this space about partnerships, alliances? How do you see that working?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm glad we started with that. I think the world of SCS for many reasons. So let me start by saying this is the kind of partnership that can create a ton of magic. And I think we're doing that already. Look, ultimately, supply chain is the most complex part of an organization. And when you look at a customer and making them successful, you need to, looking at it from the customer's perspective, it's about getting the best vendors together to reduce the chaos and the errors in the supply chain. And I can't think of a better marriage for two high-level reasons, right? Because we can go into a million of them, but I'll try to summarize it with two reasons. Again, with the end point of making the customer successful. We started as a tech-enabled service company. It was a means to the end. We started as a sourcing platform. And then we use that to learn and inform the functionality of the software because we're a multi-product software platform. And then we went to market as a software company. I kind of look at SCS as sort of the reverse, right? It's you're a very strong service organization, and you've been smart to have the technology layer with it. Now, if you look at it from a customer perspective, we have the understanding of what it is to offer services in the supply chain to our customers. And I'm glad we do, because if you look at supply chain, you can have the best operating platform. And when I say operating platform, I mean the people and the process to get items to pre-PO and then PO to shipment and then shipment to the warehouse. And if that operating platform is weak, no technology can do anything to solve that. And reciprocally, your operating platform can be supreme, but if you don't have the wherewithal and the agency and the vision to really attach that with strong technology, then no amount of superiority with the operating platform can get the company to maximize on margins and sales. So I think the answer to for companies to scale with respect to influencing margins and sales, it's about optimizing for that services layer on the supply chain as well as the technology layer. And so I think us coming together, which is all this is to say that those are the two pieces that we bring together, right? You guys bring the superior operating platform with an understanding of why technology is important, and we bring the technology layer that can then supercharge the operating platform to the next level for our customers. So that's reason one. I think reason two is just no alliance or partnership is going to be successful unless there's a cultural marriage that is just amazing. And you can't, there's no, I mean, I'm a data person. There's no data that can tell you which of these alliances and partnerships are going to be a cultural victory. I think we're lucky that we have that here. And again, these two reasons are going to make us so much more successful when we go and serve our customers together.
Absolutely. And Jason, if I could just add one thing before we
Dive on in.
send it back to you. I think one of the main reasons why SCS wanted to develop this synergy and this sort of partnership with Suuchi and Suuchi Grid is because we really believe it's about unlocking the power of collaboration. And I think the proposition for supply chain solutions is to collaborate with Grid by Suuchi because it presents a remarkable opportunity for synergy, particularly enhancing the range and the efficiency of our logistics and our supply chain services. And the collaboration aligns well with both organizations' objectives, which is to provide third and fourth party services to a global clientele. And I think Suuchi will agree that all of the officials at Suuchi Inc. have long felt that their Grid software solution is the new standard for supply chain operations, and one that really solves the gaps left behind by legacy technology stacks. So I just wanted to throw that in there after Suuchi so eloquently answered your question, Jason. Back to you.
No, that was fantastic. And I want to go a little bit further into that too, because I think, Suuchi, you've got a really cool view on just how the gaps that are, but within an organization that are caused by logistics. And I really think part of that view comes from, you kind of mentioned this earlier, how your platform started. So you started with the sourcing platform, right? And so you were working primarily with the vendors. And I'm totally spitballing here, so correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure you started to see how many disconnects there were between vendor and also, who's purchasing the goods. And so how did you, when you were building the Grid, kind of tell me about that transition, when that aha moment was that you're like, hey, I see this problem all the time, I can tackle this, and kind of how that, that moment spread to creating just such a fully encompassing program.
Yeah. Hey, listen, any business, whether you're 20 years old or 50 or 2 or 7, like in our case, almost 7, is you're always more eloquent when you're talking about the past, but when you go back in time, it's more of an idea it's really amorphous, and it is what it is. The only way to make that, to crystallize that, is to execute, right? So the high level idea was always the same from the beginning, which is the C-level team, the management team, and I, while we came together to start Suuchi Inc., we all had this common experience in our past life, which is that the technology stack across supply chains was broken. You had systems of record, but they were not connected. And so we felt like the timing was right to create the new dominant, the new SAP, the new Infor, the new Oracle, add 10 other Goliath names in there, but they all did the same thing, but they weren't doing it effectively. But we didn't necessarily know the exact answer to what were those, if you had to double click on that, what were those specific 15, 20, 25 things, the small things that were going to come together to help us better solve the larger problem. And I think starting as a sourcing platform, I am just so, I didn't know it then, but now sitting where we are right now, we're so happy and we're so grateful we started that way, One, for the reasons I already spoke about, it gave us an appreciation for the importance of that service layer and the operating platform that the company still needs to get their act together, or the customer does, in terms of putting the right processes together. But the other side of it was it influenced the roadmap for our technology in a way that we never could have gotten the platform to where it is today in terms of it being a differentiator unless we had started as a service company, really understanding on the ground what was the feedback and what were the bugbears and the problems that all these different communities and participants face, the vendors on the one side, the brands on the other side. And there's such different skill sets, right? You guys know that somebody sitting at corporate, sitting in front of a laptop, right? And then you have all of these folks that are on warehouses, and suppliers and vendors that are on their phones. And so understanding the cultural differences, the skill set differences, the geographic, where are they sitting, which countries are they sitting in? But also, we realized that 95% of adoption or lack of adoption isn't so much about, do I have a system of record or not? When I say system of record, I'm talking about where a purchase order master is, a product master is, a shipment master is. I will tell you that pretty much all these companies have systems of record. 95% of their issues with disconnected tech stacks is the fact that they don't have a place where they can collaborate and communicate in real time and manage files and manage exceptions, and in real time have data and reporting in a very intuitive way. So I think these are the bits that we really understood from the ground up. And ultimately, the main learning we had at the high level that influenced the micro level pieces of our roadmap was that what we needed was and I like how Anthony put it, and I'm going to steal from him, what we needed was a collaborative network platform that could sit alongside the systems of record, so we could really empower all of these participants with different skill sets across the entire length of the value chain, and thereby bring on 95% of the participants that typically get booted out of these systems of records, right? Because companies are not going to buy 10,000 logins, but also even if they were hypothetically to buy that, who's going to use these systems, right? So.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Jay, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask a quick question to Suuchi. So Suuchi, talk about grid. How does it really best improve the supply chain for companies? If you could speak to that a little bit.
So I like this question. And we were actually on a call with a customer this morning. They've been on the grid for about, it's been about 18 months since we started working with them. And it was so great to hear them talk about their use of the grid, but their ability to quantify what their gains have been, right? So we now have a pattern where we're able to quantify across, okay, what are the vectors of influence, but also across each of these vectors of influence, what are the percentage gains that we can see? So qualitatively, life before the grid is chaos. A lot of Excels. Even if you're a $1 billion company, you still have systems. You have entire data sets running on Excel systems and point solutions, and you end up, as you scale, having not just one PLM ERP, but multiple PLMs and ERPs, and sometimes many WMSs. And so qualitatively with the grid, it's about minimizing and eliminating the chaos and providing the connective tissue, single source of truth, and one collaborative network platform. I keep looking at Anthony and smiling because those are his words. So I can continue.
You're so kind.
Yeah, but on the quantitative perspective, 4 vectors. The first is reduce manual tasks, improve net margin as a function of reduced operating expenses. So few people or redirect their time to more strategic tasks. Second vector is reduce COGS because of lower liabilities, eliminating bad suppliers, bringing on better suppliers, so better GM or gross margin. The third vector, faster time to market, higher sales. And finally, counterintuitively with the grid, we actually reduce the total cost of technology investment, because with the grid, better ROI from the underlying systems, but also transfer of more expensive logins from the underlying systems onto the grid.
Yeah, and just real quick, Suuchi, I mean, as you so eloquently put it, I think, not only does it reduce those operating expenses and improves those gross margins, it's about improving the bottom line, as you mentioned. And I think a couple of the key things is that it can really convert those manual tasks into digital operations. And that's really the lowest hanging fruit. So for example, let me know if you agree. So if you have 10 people, they can convert 20% of their time to digital operations. So that's the time of 2 people. You could either redirect, that time to streamlining the size of the team and redirecting the time of the team to more strategic tasks. So you're reducing operating expenses by streamlining people's times. And I think secondly, it's about improving, as you mentioned earlier, just those gross margins and reducing the cost to goods sold, and I think with that better communication with vendors, better bid management, you're removing those vendors that are really not giving you the best cost and are late and have poor quality issues. So that's kind of my spin on that, Suuchi. I don't know if you would agree, but you tell us.
100%. Bingo. You said it right. I'm going to save my voice because I couldn't say it better than that.
Oh, stop. Jason, back to you.
Yeah. And one of the things I want you to talk about, Suuchi, because I think this, I guess maybe I'll start with this. One comment. I'm sure you see this with a lot of organizations. You probably get into a customer and you notice they're kind of trying to build their own, DIY grid. And they're doing this by figuring out basically file storage kind of processes and when things are shared. And you've got excess of emails just because of the way these documents are being uploaded and such. And so that probably looks like Candyland when you get in there. And that's got to be the case, correct?
Yes and no, but no, finish your question.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Secondarily, I'm extremely interested with your, the speed to implementation that the grid can offer for a customer. And I'm just kind of curious, like, what does it look like for a customer who is considering the grid? What's the process look like from your end and their end?
Yeah. So great questions. The first part is the first question was, what if somebody's attempting a homegrown system and building it in house? And it could be Candyland, but it could also be a little frightening when you get into those environments. And I'll tell you why. It depends on where they are in their journey of building out the homegrown systems. If you are a cosmetics company, or if you are a food and bev company, or a retailer or a manufacturer, that's the core business. The business of building software is a very, very different business. Mm-hmm. So, and it's not to take away from those companies that end up doing a good job with their homegrown systems, and some do, but I will tell you, it's 1% of them doing it right is a generous percentage, right? Because it's just, it takes building a team, it takes knowledge of multiple layers of the tech stack, the back end, the front end, the architecture, and it's maintaining it. And so there's the expense and there's the know-how as well. So very few get it right. But there's those that have the confidence and the potential, and you want to meet them at the right point where they understand they've already gone through a fair share of grief in building it out. And when you meet them at that point, then there's some alignment on, okay, let's bring something that's from a software company that where there is repeatability and scalability and cost effectiveness. But if you're meeting them at the wrong end of that journey, which is where they had confidence of building it out right, you got to wait to have them make their mistakes. And you can't force yourself in, right? So that's why it's not always a kid in Candyland. It depends on when you enter, right? But I will say that we find that in many places, right? It's kind of tragic to watch because you know how that story is going to end, but you can't tell them how the story is going to end because they're going to have to live that story themselves, right? Mm-hmm. But on the second part, in terms of implementation, your first question is great because it's related to that. Sometimes these homegrown systems may be built out and then they're there because they're systems of record. So, they're just going to be sitting there. So implementation is really a function of what can be natively just created and managed on the grid, which is the easiest part. But then what do we need to integrate with? Because we have to respect what's in place, the legacy systems, because these legacies, the word respect is very important because it's not, it would be a stupid thing to attempt to rip and replace these systems out, whether they're homegrown or they're off the shelf. Because it's much easier to integrate with them and provide that connective tissue on top. But if they are legacy systems, the more legacy, the more homegrown, the lack of API, sometimes you got to write webhooks. So those could sometimes delay implementation times. But we're able to get companies live and activated as quickly as in a month, even the more complex and large companies, on the native functionality with subsets of people, right? Mm-hmm. So it's about subsetting the entire scope down, because even if it means we get 10% of the overall set of participants and 5% of the workflow live, you want to be expediting adoption as quickly as possible, right? So our goal is we want that first community and the first set of workflows, even if it's a tiny little slice, we want to show some adoption within that first quarter, whether it's a month or 3 months. But it's unlike, because our customers are more between, I'd say, around 40, 50 million-ish on the lower end, up to a couple of billion. That's really our target market: lower mid-market, upper mid-market, early enterprise. The entire cycle of getting all the implementations, all the integrations done, some of our customers have thousands of users on the grid, right? So it could take it could take up to 6 and 9 months for some of those bigger companies before you're fully live, sometimes up to a year. But as long as we could show them sequential ROI and adoption along the way, that's our goal.
I love that. That was great.
Jay, if you don't mind, I have another question for Suuchi. So let me ask you this, Suuchi. What would you say was the what's another word? The momentum or the propulsion for the software, as the founder of Suuchi Inc. And, I think we all know that, I think there's a lot of companies out there that are on the cusp of huge growth, but they struggled with all their supply chain upgrades, and they really were going from Excel spreadsheets, as you mentioned earlier, to like a scatter plot of like, point solutions, so not everybody's ready for, SAP or Oracle or, something like that. And there wasn't a multi-product platform like yours out there yet. So can you speak to that a little bit? And then the second part of that question is what's really the sweet spot for the companies you service?
The sweet spot in terms of the profile of companies that we go after.
Yes.
So got it. So the first part of the question, what was the impetus? Well, I think, a little bit, I guess a big part's of foolishness and being naive. Any founder and entrepreneur will tell you that. But
Sure.
definitely that, like, it's a cliche, but it's true. If you knew everything you were going to go through over the years on day one, the decision probably may have been different, maybe not. But you need to be big parts naive and foolish and not know everything in many ways to say, I want to go do this, right? So, but I'm glad I wouldn't change a thing. I wanted agency and I wanted control of the ship that I was steering. And so those were the softer factors, right? The things that you can put a number against, or it's just this gut and following your instinct. But then the other part of it in terms of supply chain and tech was just, it's all I knew what to do. That's all I'd done all my life. Not all my life, at least all my academic and professional life. And I'd had consistent front row seats to seeing the challenges that customers faced. And I was lucky pretty early on then to also surround myself with some of the most amazing leaders that are still here. And it takes a village. And we've got, I'd say, some of the best C-level folks, not just in terms of their background, but in terms of their character set and their resilience. So all that worked out. And then listen, you learn along the way and you build out a platform as you go. And I'd say that we always knew that we didn't want to be a point solution. We knew that in order to tackle the challenges and realize our mission statement, we had to be a multi-product platform. So that was pretty clear from the beginning. But as we started executing against that mission statement, we started seeing attributes of our moat building, which made us realize, wow, there's something here. We keep at this and we just keep doing what we're doing. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to change up this formula. We just need to keep repeating this formula and have a long-term view. And as long as we survive and repeat this formula, we will thrive. And what I mean by the moat is the world of supply chain. And this is no different. I'm sure you see this with supply chain solutions, Jay and Anthony, is that these are such complex problems to solve. They're not complicated, but they're complex. They need a lot of thought leadership. They need know-how. And they need strong companies and vendors to attack them and solve them. And so when you start to be the problem solver and you do it successfully, companies will stick with you, customers will stick with you. Yeah. So that stickiness with customers, I think, is a huge thing in our industry, right? Mm-hmm. Whether you're offering warehousing and freight solutions or whether you're offering a multi-product supply chain platform, is that it's tough to get in and win confidence. But when you're in, you can land and you can expand as long as you're authentic and do a decent job. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing we realized was just the repeatability of our solution, is that problems are complex, but they're very similar too. So we saw that we could apply across multiple industries. We didn't do them all at the same time. We started with fashion and then cosmetics and then manufacturing and retail. And we're like, wow, you know what? With every new industry we enter, the variance is less, the commonality is more. So that gave us more excitement so far as the size of the market. And finally, the size of our contracts too, right? When you're multi-product, the kind of services the kind of solutions we sell, both of our companies, they're mission critical to our customers' operations, right? Is if we get it right, we are fundamentally part of the heartbeat and part of the muscle tone and spinal cord of these companies. So again, if we're good at what we do, you can have these be pretty sizable transactional values. So all of these, back to your, I think we had an idea, but then when you start executing and you start to see these patterns, you can see a path to, wow, this could be effing brilliantly big if we do it right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't really.
Oh,
so
No. Perfectly fine.
That I think is what we've learned along the way, and we see a path to getting to those milestones.
Yeah.
And then the second bit is, I kind of answered it. What's the sweet spot is just companies that we see, whether we enter at 30 million or whether we enter at 3 billion, we're equally excited as long as even the 20, 30 million company is growing fast and has a long-term view. And we want to come in where we see the problems to solve and there's a commitment to getting the right people on to solve those problems.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what exciting.
Yeah, I view one of the beauties of the grid is that it's solving internal company problems and also company dealing with company problems at the same time. So when we are going to be interacting with a customer who's able to integrate the grid, it makes it easier for us to execute what we're trying to do. And as a result, you're going to see better results, or, company ABC is going to see better results from our efforts. And that's, I think, the biggest beauty of the partnership, right? You're able to get in quick. You've got a great digital mind of viewing at this from an engineering standpoint. And so from that, we know we're going to see process results. And when I say process, I don't mean process. I mean, file results, how things are being transferred and such, what connective tissue is being focused on first. Yeah. And with that, we'll see results with that customer faster and they'll be happier. And so it's a really cool partnership. And anyway, sorry, I really wanted to make that comment because I love the way you talk about this. I also love how you started with cosmetics, and when you were kind of spreading into the different industries, you knew their issues, their people, how they do things was different, but the more you did, the more you realized, I've got something pre-built that I just got to make a slight edit, and this is perfect for them. And I love that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I will say, I know a lot of this has been about the grid and what we've done. And, the narcissist in me loves all the attention, and for the team, thank you. But reciprocally, and I have to say it is, I've been so impressed by everything I've seen about supply chain solutions, right? Because it's you guys are what we want to be when we grow up, right? It's just, and I, of course, I'm using a cliche, but it's something remarkable to be said about the leadership, but also the caliber of the people you folks have, because you're 20 plus years old, which is not old, but it's not super young. And so to have, I think survival is a huge victory. First of all, I think you guys have to be very proud of yourselves, but it's the kind of team you built, and seeing it from the inside and having the opportunity. And I'm grateful that I had that opportunity to see it from the inside. You have some fantastic customers across many different verticals. What I love is from a leadership and a strategy standpoint, I see that there is a conservative view on how to make long-term decisions, which is very important. But I still see the company playing offense in terms of acquisitions and strengthening the revenue base and diversifying it. So it's that really nice balance between offense and defense, which I think which makes sense. You guys have been around this long and you have these great relationships and great people, but couple that with the strategy where you're brilliantly playing across offense and defense. So there's a lot to learn from how you folks have built it. And we couldn't be more thrilled to be associated with a company of this caliber and prestige.
We're so honored. Thank you for the kind words. Jason, please.
Honestly, I'm I'm wordless. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that.
And that's unusual.
You've got a great dynamic internally, and I'm really glad you highlighted that. And you know, our owners have different ways of thinking, and it works out really, really well.
That's a balance is necessity. Yeah,
exactly. And it's you know, we've grown in a unique way. We always take a step right and a step left, but we're working our way forward the whole time, and it's been great for us. I mean, you know, Anthony's seen a lot of our growth. At the same time, we just had the across the border growth with G4.
Yeah.
And getting you involved into how we operate it's really, really exciting. And I because, you know, we see so many different customers, and oh my gosh, when you talk about disparate systems, some of the stuff I feel like is just a black box you can't even crack into. And, you know, we try to build our APIs out with our customers as well, because it allows us to do our jobs easier. But it's a situation where Suuchi can get in there easier, create better connective tissue, make that company easier to connect to and easier to work with, that allows us to just supercharge the supply chain needs or issues, and solving those issues at least. So, I mean, I can't be more excited about this partnership. Anthony, how are you feeling?
Oh, I'm just thrilled. I can't tell you. It's been amazing being able to plant seeds with Suuchi Inc. and water them and start to see, you know, things growing and we're harvesting. But I think really one of the biggest things I want our listeners to think of, and when they think of SCS, but when they think of Suuchi Inc. and when they think of Grid, I think, you know, what we both provide is the single source of the truth across the supply chain. And we do that by connecting, you know, companies' legacy stacks as the system of record. And that's really what Grid is. And that's what SCS and Suuchi Inc. and Grid really do so well. So, you know, I'm just, you know, off the charts excited about what the future holds for our companies.
So what I want all the viewers to do, if you right now, you're obviously going through some of the budgeting expenses for next year. If you're noticing that you've got a lot of systems you're working on, implementation and such, you're kind of feeling a little bit paralyzed, you're a great company to communicate with us, get to meet Suuchi, and kind of learn a little bit about how that connective tissue layer can kind of streamline just those implementations. And then at the same point, if you're working with us now, you should definitely give us a call. We'll introduce you to Suuchi so she can kind of discuss what's going on currently between our companies and how the Grid would fit in. I really appreciate everyone for joining today. Suuchi, I mean, this woman has a very busy schedule, and I'm so thankful we were able to get you on the show, and we put her right in the wolf's den when she visited us, and you know, you could see right there that she's a perfect fit. So we
absolutely.
You, Suuchi.
Well, thank you. You guys are amazing. This was so much fun, and you know, like I said, if you're in a room with the right people, time just flies. So I had a lot of fun with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suuchi. Any other closing comments, Suuchi? Anything else you want to add?
Just excited about the partnership. Just like you guys said, with having your customers introduced to what we could do. I think reciprocally, for sure, right? It just all the solutions that Supply Chain Solutions offers across warehousing and freight and import. So many of our customers could use a reliable partner for that. And we couldn't be excited to say to them, here's the family of solutions we can offer and introduce them to you. So just can't wait to go to market together.
Love it.
And we're already doing more of it. Yes.
Jason, back to you, my friend.
Hey, thanks, and make it a great day.
Make it a great day, guys. That's our sign off, Suuchi. All the best. Take care.
Hey, thanks so much, Suuchi.
Bye-bye.